Farnus awoke with a start, eyes flashing wide and swiveling in his skull. He ignored the pain that the bright lights around him pierced him with, pupils shrinking to pinpricks. Slowly, things began to come into definition. White lights, steel walls, toy soldiers. The Imperial jerked as though he had been struck with an electric current, only to find his hands and feet restrained. Even his head was restrained, his waist as well, his biceps, his shoulders. His entire body was bound down into a medical bed, strapped with thick synthetic leather that didn't give him an inch. Farnus could do little but wiggle and worm in a panic, eyes rolling from side to side. The replica he could see were mostly helmetless, sitting or laying unrestrained on other beds as they were tended to by machines. And not surgical servitors or manned pieces of equipment, but by bipedal, speaking, thinking machines. He screamed, eyes moving towards him at the sound, many of the clones breaking from what they were doing to stare at the conscious Imperial. And the attention made Farnus suck in his breath and cease his noise almost as quickly as he had let it loose. These were the enemy. They were the people who had killed Sergeant Norn. Killed Janice, almost killed him and Nerva. The thought of her had his eyes rolling again. But no matter where they searched, there was no sign of the tech priest anywhere near him. Instead, they found the machine that was tending to him, its cold, bright mechanical eyes staring down at him from right beside his bed. Farnus could not help himself, bound, surrounded by foes, and now under the scrutiny of the abominable intelligence itself. The very force that had caused the Emperor to rise and take control of mankind. The young guardsman pissed himself, the countless stories of horror he had been raised with all occurring to him, speaking in the voices of his most trusted elders, his companions, his friends. He had always known he would probably die fighting monsters like this. But he had not died. He had been captured. And the very concept of what he imagined would happen to him next was enough to make his heart falter. Enough to lose control completely.
Please be calm. Your heart rate is reaching an alarming level. If you do not calm down, I will have to administer a sedative.
The machine said, speaking Gothic. To that, Farnus felt faint, hyperventilating as the AI monstrosity reached forward with its left arm, a limb ending in no hand, but rather a large needle. The approach of the point made his chest hurt, his body shivering and trembling so much it seemed he may be having a seizure. "He won't need one," said a voice, a familiar voice, and the machine stopped, looking up and behind the bed Farnus was bound to.
"He will faint or suffer."
The machine began to say, "I'll take care of it. Go tend to Sando, he's been asking for an update on his arm," said the voice again. Feminine, accented, familiar, and yet not. Where had he heard that voice before? He tried to focus on that, breathing slightly more easily as the machine nodded its head and stepped back and away, marching down and past the row of beds Farnus was a part of and leaving his sight. "Calm down," said the voice from behind him, and, oddly, he felt a placidity pass through him, his breath rushing out more slowly, his heart feeling less pained as it too slowed down, though it still hammered hard in his chest. "No one is going to hurt you. Just take a few deep breaths," said the hidden voice. "Do you think I'm a fool?" Farnus spat, struggling in his restraints again, the small calm her previous words had imparted fleeing him like birds from a struck tree. I remember your voice now. You're that Xenos! The one with the horns! I won't tell you anything! I am Farnus Ilatin, Minatorum designation 21411 of the 174th Vestellan Imperial Irregulars Infantry Division! He blurted, his eyes looking to the left and to the right, but still unable to see her. "Well, okay. I thought you just said you weren't going to tell me anything," the voice behind him said, bemused. Farnus blushed heatedly at that, tightening his jaw as much as he could. "Listen, Farnus was it? I just want you to calm down." The alien began to say again, to which Farnes cut in. I am Farnes Eliton, Minotaur of the designation 21411 of the 174th Vestillin Imperial Regulus Infantry Division. He interjected, barely able to keep his words straight, such was the obvious fear packed within his throat. There was a pause then, Farnes' breathing continuing to rasp in and out at too rapid a pace. He felt lightheaded, the fear mixing with his struggling and hyperventilating to drain him even further of his strength. Listen to me, Farnes. You need to slow your breathing down or... She began again. I am Farnes Eliton, Munitorum designation 21411 of the 174th Vestillin Imperial Regulars Infantry Division! He barked out again. This time he heard her sigh, an exasperated sound as the Xenos finally realized what he was doing. There was a 30-second pause then, one in which Farnes made no attempt, conscious or otherwise, to calm down. He felt like he was going to throw up, especially as his eyes focused on what he could see in place of trying to spot what he could not, noticing again all of the scowling, murderous clones. Listen, I only want to... The alien warrior started again, but again, Farnes did not let her get far. I am Farnes E. Eliton, Munitorum designation 21411 of the 174th Vestillin Imperial Regulars Infantry Division. She sighed more heavily this time, a puff of irritated frustration. Farnes Eliton, you are shaming your commander! The woman snapped out from behind him, speaking faster than he could interject. You have allowed yourself to be captured. You have soiled your uniform, and you are panicking in the face of the enemy. She continued authoritatively, her words smacking the young soldier back to a lower awareness, feeling the cooling heat from his cowardly loss of control, his fear transmuting into shame and defeat in seconds. Breathe properly or stop breathing! She added, her last scolding remark forcing him to begrudgingly obey. Still shuddering, he closed his eyes deliberately, breathing in and out more slowly, forcing himself to do so. Her words echoed in his head, voiced by his own sergeant and commissar trainer, knowing it was exactly what they would say. In fact, it was more lenient than what they would have done. The sergeant would have begun cursing Farnes and his entire family, and the commissar likely would have shot him dead without a word to spare. The thoughts chastened him, reminding him of his combat breathing. He breathed in for 4 seconds, held it for 4 seconds, and then breathed out again for 4 seconds. His timing was horribly off as he counted the moments in his head, but just the attempt began to have an effect on him. I am Farnes Eliton, Munitorum designation 21411 of the 174th Vestillin Imperial Regulars Infantry Division. He managed to half stutter, half breathe out. Good, I mean, better, that's better, said the voice from behind him, attempting to maintain her effective edge. Now, soldier, I have questions I need to ask you. Your life could well depend on the answers you give me, she said, tone softening only slightly but remaining mostly rigid and hard. I am Farnes Eliton, Munitorum designation 21411 of the 174th Vestillin Imperial Irregulars Infantry Division, Farnes repeated. There was another pause then, though it did not last as long as the last one. Farnes, do you serve the motive force? She asked. Eyes still closed, he felt his face screw up in confusion. The motive force? Wasn't that a Mechanicus concept? Farnes understood the role of the Omnissiah as the Emperor and the Machine God as his greater aspect as relates to machines. But the motive force? Wasn't that what tech priests thought powered their reactors and made Promethium burn? Of course, he voiced none of these internal thoughts. He said something else instead. I am Farnes Eliton, Munitorum designation 21411 of the 174th Vestillin Imperial Irregulars Infantry Division, he repeated. Another, more exasperated sigh was heard, followed by the longest pause yet. Farnes was silent, as was she, but the room was not, and he heard the murmuring and speaking of the replicate all around him. They were speaking something called Galactic Basic, of which Farnes had only managed to learn a few phrases. But that aside, they sounded so human. Some laughed, some were groaning and whining about their injuries. Many were speaking in various tones, all similar to what he had heard as a soldier among other soldiers, with one glaring, uncanny exception. All the voices sounded the same. "Okay, I understand why you don't want to speak to me. You are a soldier, doing as you were trained to—" She began to say from behind him. "I am Farnes Eliton, Munitorum designation 21411 of the 174th Vestilian Imperial Irregulars, Infantry Division." He droned out, cutting her off. "Do," she finished after he did, sounding frustrated. "If you interrupt me again, I'll have to gag you," she said quickly in follow-up, and Farnes felt a spike of frustration hit him at the idea of another restraint being thrown onto him. Gritting his teeth behind his lips, he said nothing more. "Like I was saying, I understand. I won't ask you to say anything, but just listen, please," she said, and the way her voice and the emotion in it sounded gave him chills. If he had not seen her corrupt alien form before, he would have thought her entirely human. How much of this could he trust? He quickly decided none of it, but he had no choice but to continue to listen, even as he swore to himself that he would not be shifted. "My name is Ahsoka Tano, and I'm only here for one reason. Your people, your Imperium, are killing thousands. And I do not mean soldiers or Jedi. I mean you are killing innocent people, murdering them in a world that is not yours. People who are not harming or hurting anyone before you came. I want that to stop, and I don't want to kill you or anyone else to make it stop," she said. Farnes licked his lips, but kept his silence. Lies, he knew. But she sounded so sincere. Could any human lie this well? An alien ploy, a Xenos trick, like an insect imitating another to sneak into the hive. He would not fall for it. He knew there would be a catch. There had to be. "I am a knight of the motive force. I do not want any more of it to be wasted in this fight. The more blood that is spilled needlessly, the harder it will be to stop. And if we do not stop, there might be nothing left of either of us, Republic or Empire. We do not know why you are attacking us, and I need to know why. Why is this happening? What do you know about the reason for this war?" she asked, almost pleaded. But at her words, her obvious attempts to deceive him, he felt no compassion. Instead, a new sensation came over him. Rage. He clenched his jaw, his brow furrowing as his eyes remained tightly shut. "So, you won't tell me anything? You're happy to just watch your friends and fellow soldiers die pointlessly to—" she began to say. "Shut up! Just shut up! Your tricks won't work! We all know why this war is happening. You know why! You did this! You did this!" He bellowed, fire in his chest bursting from his lips in a vicious rebuke. "Are you talking about the ship that was hyperspace rammed? We don't know why that happened," the woman behind him insisted. "It is against our laws to do that kind of thing. We are still investigating, and we would probably know more if—" She continued, but again could not finish her sentence. "This isn't just about the Atlas of Steel! You fracking alien! You monster! You predator!" He railed, struggling and pulling on his bonds again. "You are not allowed to sound so innocent! You can't pretend you don't know what you do to us! I've heard it! I've seen it!" He continued. "Worlds turn to worse than ashes! Death that never ends, living inside your body with no control of your mind! We've killed you! We've killed you in 1,000,000 billion worlds, and it still isn't enough for you to just leave us alone!" Farnes screamed. "I've seen the bodies! I've seen the cities and the survivors! You keep us like cattle! You eat our minds and steal our souls! It is never enough! Never enough! You lie, betray, and backstab! Every word, every act you take is not only to destroy us, but devour us! Enslave us! Corrupt us! I've seen it! You cannot lie to me!" His words grew heavier on his lips, his protestations evoking horrid memories within his mind, filling the darkness behind his closed eyes. "I saw the people we pulled out of those black slavers' ships. You tortured them. You ate them while they still lived. You turned them into furniture, you sick fracks! I had to kill them. I had to kill them because you wouldn't let them die. I was there in the aftermath of the razing of Celestine City. I saw it! Civilians herded into pens and arenas, made to fight against you even though you were bigger, stronger, even though they did not want to fight, even though you had already won. It just was not enough. You smashed them, you fracks, in front of their children, and then you smashed the children. You more monsters! Aliens! Every one of you! Every single one! He paused then, chest heaving, panting as he caught his breath for a couple of moments. We will never stop, he breathed out. Because you will never stop. You hunted us in the darkness for thousands of years. You made us fall, made us bleed and suffer and die. Well, no more! Now we hunt you! Now we come for you! That is the gift the God Emperor gave us! He gave us power and unity and armies so that we would not have to just take it anymore! You were the predators, but now we are the hunters! Us! Mankind! Humans! We are not your cattle or your toys or your fracking slaves! We are your enemy! And we will spill your blood until you and everyone and everything that serves you is cast out of existence! We won't be afraid of you anymore! We hate you! We will always hate you! We will fight you to our dying breaths and beyond! We will tear at you and gouge at you like you did us! Like you hurt us! Fracking aliens! Fracking heretics! We have greatness now! We won't let you take it away! Die! Die, Xenos! Do us all a favor and just die! 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 The young man raged, tears streaming from his tensed, closed eyes, finally falling into relative silence as he panted more heavily and caught his breath. There was a long silence then, even most of the replicae ceasing their speaking after his tirade, and he expected that soon he would be dead. Dead, or worse. And that, either way, it would be painful. When he felt a warm hand lay over his shoulder, he flinched and tried to pull away. He expected agony to follow. He did not expect what happened next. I'm sorry all of that has happened to you, said the voice behind him. No, you're not! Stop lying! He yelled back. I am not lying. I hate to hear this. I hate to see how much you must have gone through. But you are wrong, she said firmly. Wrong about what? I told you I've seen, he began to say. Wrong about everything, Ahsoka snapped, cutting him off. Wrong about the Republic. We don't want to do anything like that to anybody. For the Force's sake, there are more human senators than there are alien ones. You're wrong about your reactions to these things that have happened to you. Wrong to become the monsters you so hate. To do to everyone what they have been doing to you. You're even wrong about me being an alien. Another pause. Are you a mutant? An aberration then? He asked. He knew he was not supposed to like mutants any more than aliens. But he had known quite a few growing up, and he knew they were not as bad. Most were hardly bad at all. I don't really know, she admitted. Could you explain to me what an abhuman is? She asked a moment later.
Rather resilient, aren't you?
The black-eyed Inquisitor said, drawing back and away from the heaving, bleeding body of Quinlan Voss. Voss could not respond, merely hanging from his restraints limply, his body bare from the waist up, his tan skin crisscrossed with lines of red, dripping more of his own life's blood down into a shallow pool beneath them. His mess of dreadlocks had been shaved off of his head, leaving him bald, his scalp and face not spared from the tender mercies of Tarweiler's hand.
No words left in you then. Well, maybe we are making some progress.
The shark-toothed Imperial said with a wide grin.
Go, frag yourself.
Quinlan managed to pant out weakly, prompting a laugh from Tar, who reached forward with his free hand and tilted his face up. Voss's eyelids having been cut away, leaving him no shelter, even in darkness.
Oh, there it is. That stubborn strength you still have hidden away. I must admit, you would have made a fine Inquisitor had you been born on the right side of reality.
The Imperial agent hissed venomously.
To resist me this much, I can count on one hand the amount of sentience that had managed that. You should take pride in it. I give you permission to.
He purred, his dark eyes meeting with Voss's permanently wide ones.
But you will break. I will find where you are hiding that strength sooner or later. And yank it out. Just you wait.
He said, dropping Voss's chin, allowing his head to hang limply once more.
In truth, I do not take as much pleasure when I must perform this procedure on a fellow human. I had so been looking forward to exercising my talents on that slippery blue bitch I caught earlier. But alas, fate does twist. I wonder if she would have been as resilient. I doubt it, however. Xenos rarely manage it. So proud and arrogant, never imagining themselves falling prey to a mere human.
He mused aloud.
You are not a human.
The defeated Jedi rasped from beneath his copious agony. In response, the scalpel sank into his left pectoral muscle, carving down through his chest in a precise line before turning at a right angle and meeting the line of another cut which had been made before. Voss shuddered and wheezed, having lost the strength to scream hours ago.
My. When will you learn that heresies only prompt more?
The man holding the knife began to say before there was a beeping in his pocket, forcing him to trail off. Tar slowly withdrew the knife, drawing out a pleasing whimper from the man he had sunken it into, before placing the newly bloodied implement on a tray nearby, and reaching down into one of his many pockets and withdrawing a communication bead which he plugged into his ear.
Yes?
The Imperial hissed. He listened for a time then, and Voss silently hoped the moment would never end as he stared into the pooling slick of his own blood gathering on the floor beneath him. He barely had any thoughts left in his head, very nearly all of them having been stripped by the agony from his mind. Voss had been tortured before at the hands of the Sith, at the hands of Dooku, but that had been nothing compared to this. This had not merely been torture, not just pain. This had been violation of the body, mind, and even soul. He coughed feebly, hoping the act would draw no more attention to him. He had been Quinlan Voss, proud and tested knight of the Jedi Order. Now he really did not know what he was. Aside from that he was a broken thing, broken in so many ways, but not broken enough to surrender to this thing, this Inquisitor. But he did not know for how much longer that would be true. He wasn't even sure it wasn't true now. He resisted still, But did he resist because he willed it so? Or was the Inquisitor toying with him, dragging out his every agony, elongating his torture on their joint path to the inevitable? A trembling fear that made his every pain reignite shuddered through him as, once more, the taloned hand of Tarweiler cupped his chin ever so gently and lifted his vision up to meet the horrid Imperial's black eyes.
It seems my ship has arrived. I'll be taking you and the others with me, of course. Our game is not yet done, and I think we both know who is going to win.
The creature that called itself human said. You... Voss tried to say through torn lips, trying to curse his name, to resist, but he lost the strength to finish, making the man chuckle hideously.
Yes. I, and soon we. But let's not get ahead of ourselves,
he said cruelly, letting Voss's head slump once more.
I'll be back. Just have to make some final preparations,
the Inquisitor said, turning from the dark metal room and walking up a flight of stairs, vanishing. There, in the darkness, alone at last, Voss felt his dry eyes begin to well with tears. He fought them, he truly did try. But soon, the once mighty Jedi began to weep, his tears burning the wounds around his eyes and across his face as they slid down his chin and joined the blood beneath him. The pain he felt was so deep, and the things that man had taken from him, their absence, ached like no pain he had ever known before. The Sith knew nothing of this. Dooku and his tortures had been child's play to this, his Force lightning having been painful, but also selfish. An expression and indulgence of the power the Count had held, but not the truest way to defeat Voss's mind. This man was entirely different, more subtle, and more cruel by far. He wept until he felt that hand once more cup his chin, sniffing, trying to halt his tears. He had not even heard or sensed Tarweiler's return, having intended to snuff his weakness when he heard the man coming back into the room. But as his head was tilted up, he saw a different visage through his blurry, unblinking eyes. "Oh, Master," said Aayla Secura, cradling his head with both hands and looking horrified. Voss was barely recognizable, and unlike the Imperial's promise to Aayla, it seemed no visible inch of his flesh had been spared the cruel caress of the Inquisitor's knife. He had already bled so much, it was all Aayla could do to hold herself together at the sight of him. Aayla, is that really you?" He managed to wheeze out on what strength he had left. "Yes, Master, it is me. Hold on, I've got something here," she said, freeing one of her hands to reach down and fumble with something on her belt. No, he will catch," Voss began to mutter. "Shh, save your strength, Master. Please save your strength," she insisted to him, finally finding what she was looking for and withdrawing it. "Here, breathe, Master. It's Bacta. Breathe in as much as you can," said the Jedi Master, pressing a Bacta rebreather over his mouth and nose. Voss did as instructed, breathing in the blue mist that appeared from within deeply, filling his lungs with it several times until the dispenser was expended. The bleeding stopped almost at once, though he seemed to gain little strength from it, only groaning in the aftermath. "I'll get you down from these chains," Aayla said with no small urgency, tossing the spent Bacta device from her hand and calling her saber into it. In 3 strikes, she had her master free, catching his collapsing body and kneeling in his blood as she cradled him down towards the ground. "I'm sorry. I should have come sooner," Ayla lamented, seeing how little strength her master had left and how ravaged his body had become. "Run, Ayla. Don't let him catch you. The things he will do." He tried to warn her feebly. At this, Ayla's expression tightened, and she nodded. "Let's get out of here then. But I am not leaving you behind. Can you still stand?" she would ask. Voss puffed in a deep breath, hands and legs fumbling, and after a moment of struggle, Ayla managed to nestle herself under his arm and helped to lift him up, his feet taking over once he was high enough, though leaning on her heavily. "Oh, Master, you've lost so much blood," she said, worrying for him as she herself became coated in it. The others," Voss wheezed. "Cannot leave them," he finished. "The other Jedi are here?" Ayla said in shock. "Where?" she asked a moment later. Quinlan used what strength he had to lift his arm, making a thumbs down sign and indicating below. "Holding cells. The ones that didn't scatter. They are down the stairs. Sub-level 9, he managed to say. "Okay, let's go get them," said Ayla. "Alone, not strong enough," Voss gasped. "Don't worry about that, Master. We are not alone," said Ayla as 8 other Jedi stepped from the shadows, standing tall and ready to fight. Despite his pain and despair, Quinlan managed a smirk. Good girl. Always have a plan," Voss rasped. "Has every one of the others gone through this?" Ayla asked. Voss shook his head no. "No, I wasn't the first, but I was second, or the third." Ayla herself grinned at that, a vicious expression. "Then soon we will have more. Hold on tight, Master. We're going to move fast," she said. Do it, Ayla. No pain I've suffered is above getting payback on that slug. Do me proud." He gasped, and Ayla nodded stiffly. "Hold on tight to me, Master. Like I said, I'm about to move fast." And with that, their shapes blurred as she and the other Jedi took off at a run, matching the speed of speeder bikes as they tore off towards and then down the stairs.